about this. I'd rewatched The Vampire Diaries and the originals because I'd been watching the spin off from it. And both The Vampire Diaries and the originals, I remember watching them the first time round. Completely different stories. It's bizarre. There were certain things that were the same, like they died, both certain people died in both, but the way I remember it the first time I watched it was completely different. Complete butterfly effect. Um, it's so much so this one because I remember the ending of it and was just to see it completely differently is bizarre. It was like watching a whole other series, completely different series. The changes were completely different. So that's what the butterfly effect is. Basically, certain people, it's called the butterfly effect. It's the Mandela effect, because there's some people that remember Mandela dying in prison and his wife speaking out at his funeral and lots of dignitaries at the funeral, and they have that memory. And then others were like, no, he was alive, he was released, and it was like, and so it happens a lot with logos. So another famous one that's from the Mandela effect. So this YouTuber spoke about it, and then loads of other people are like, yeah, we remember it as well, like that. Some people say it's testing time. Other people say that it's sort of like messing with us. The ones that are amazing, like the Mandela, the ones that are like big political ones like that, are the most interesting, I think. But a lot of them are like what I've experienced with these two series and completely different endings to them. The logo, the Fruit of the Loom logo, is a famous one where the cornucopia, some people had it with the cornucopia, most people don't. There's another one, like different things, like one where it's monocle and no monocle for the Monopoly guy. So just various other things. But basically, when I first saw about this, or first experienced it, shall I say, I could have put it down to it being, because it was on a personal nature, of it being my mistake and me completely remembering things differently. And you might think, well, that's all it is, because the majority of the people will remember the new way. They won't remember the old way, but there's a small group of people that still, I think it's the same with Trekkies. There was a whole, I can't remember which one it was. All of the fans remember it happening in one way, and they're like, all of the actors, no, we didn't record that one. That's never been recorded. The Star Wars one is another famous one. Luke, you're my father, or Luke, what's the other one? Anyway, there's lots. If you Google it, ones will come up, and there's loads of videos on it. But as I was saying, the first time I sort of experienced this, I was so certain about something that had happened one way, and I'd been experiencing stepping into this kind of timeline. Like it was almost like standing in a daydream, and suddenly I'm in another life. I'm literally married to someone else in another world. Not another world, but kind of another, well, it felt like another world, a completely different timeline. And I thought, God, am I having visions? Because that often used to happen. I remember having a meditation and seeing an image of me holding this beautiful blonde-haired baby, and then thinking, oh, it must be, because I was with Simon, obviously, oh, I'm going to have a son. And then a few months or a year or so later, when I was standing holding that very same baby, who happened to be my nephew, knowing, oh my God, that's this moment, like the realization, this was the vision. So obviously seeing those future things is one thing. Similar, thinking I was going to have twins, because mine are so close in age, they look like twins, and dreaming in my mind, thinking it was a dream of the two twins playing with the kids on the beach later, thinking I was in a whole other country because it looked like I was in California. And then when I was actually on the beach somewhere, and it did look like California, but it wasn't, with my two, one boy, one girl, years later. So I was like, oh, this is very, very unusual. Maybe it's that. But knowing this wasn't, because this was completely different. This was like a simultaneously parallel world that I had stepped into, and was looking out the eyes of another woman who was a whole other life, different, with different decisions. And so that had been happening more and more. And then I'd had this incident with a friend. Now I know, and I kind of, there's nothing I can do for her to forgive me, because I was so certain of the truth of something that I accused her of stealing. But in her reality, she didn't. And I had to look at it from and going over, but there was other people that remembered it differently. But she had this stuff that I thought had been used or stolen, and gave it back to me. So I knew, obviously, she felt betrayed by me accusing her, and we lost our friendship. I lost my friendship. So there was, other than to apologise, I knew I just had to accept that I'd lost her. But I had other people around me that remembered differently. Similar thing. That in itself could be construed as, well, you were just wrong. You remembered wrongly, so did the other person, and so therefore you were mistaken. One thing. But many, many people remembering the same thing, so that could be excused as being not in the Mandela effect happening. But the things now, like, just like, I distinctly remember the alternatives to this series. And it's just really strange to have a memory of watching something. And the memory's so strong because I cried the first time around. So our memories, when they're linked to our emotions, are quite strong. I might stay in my hair, sorry. I think I need to give it a good wash. It's looking a little greasy. Excuse me, and my paranoia, a little bit of ego. But looking at the colour. So yeah, it's strange to. So I'd like to ask you, are there stuff? What's the other one I started to say about before? Shops. There's people, like, they remember there being shops in places on that. Oh, that was a corner shop. No, there's never been a corner shop there. People are turning around and saying, God, my hair looks horrendous. Maybe in another lifetime it will be super, super, just stepped out of a salon, but certainly not at the moment. So have you experienced the Mandela effect? Let me know in the comments below. I have to say, it is a real strange phenomenon. So I asked for guidance on it, and it's about the timelines merging. There are multiple timelines. And remember, I said in February, we were talking about what I was calling the TARDIS effect. We're all in our TARDISes. We're all on our own timeline, individual timelines that we're stepping in and out of, and like stepping from one room to another. These are multiple layers of reality within one. That we have the ability to step in and out of many times, like I was describing, where I was stepping into this other alternative life where I lived in California, where I never came home when I went traveling, and I stayed. So it reminded me of a time when I'd gone to go home and I'd felt like I was leaving part of me behind. It was as though I was feeling the crossover of that there was a different me emerged from that moment, like a sliding doors moment, if you like. And certain things were meant to happen. So you might say, well, hang on a minute, how can you be happy if you think you will be to be with completely different lifetime? Because for me, in this lifetime, I have my beautiful children. That's what I picked. That's what this version of me chose, to go for that one where I stood seeing the two beautiful, what I thought was twins, on a California beach. happened to be a beach here in the UK. I picked those beautiful children, and that future, that was the one I wanted to live and experience. It doesn't mean that there's another version that didn't happen, that I can, bizarrely, I feel like I step into it now and again, like not by mistake, but it crosses over in certain things that I'm putting into reality or bringing into reality with my work. So the details of how we get there are certain things that are meant to happen. Like with these endings, it seems that in both scenarios, there was another political one. Someone died earlier than what they thought. I can't remember who that was. Anyway, but both of these scenarios that I had viewed recently with the two different shows, significant people in fact, no, yeah, it's that one. Definitely ended completely differently. In fact, I remember this person dying, and in the newer one she doesn't, and then the same in the originals one. I remember they all die basically, apart from one of them, and in this only two of them die in the new one. So it just, but they all die if they sacrifice themselves, whereas only two need to sacrifice themselves. So it's strange how little things like that may seem insignificant. What relevance does that have? A TV program, a movie, a logo? They're subtle ripples just in the reminder that there are many options, there are many alternatives, and to keep constantly striving to walking the better timeline. In fact, they were a better timeline in both. They were better endings, preferable endings, which was nicer. So in one timeline where I was wishing for the ending to be different, I now viewed an ending where it was different, which I find hilarious. Still cried my eyes out through it. But yeah, what a beautiful way to be, that, and to know that if you have the power to step into a world, literally step into another world where something that you wish for can just be there instantaneously now. That's nuts. Is that not a little crazy? It makes me think, whoa, that's like a big mic drop moment. Then you can do that with anything. And others might say, well, it's happening because it's conspiracy. I think it's happening because people are starting to feel and understand power, and these little subtle changes are showing us the glitches, if you like, in the matrix, some might say, the possibilities of changing things for a higher timeline that we're now on.